people say, you really learn how to do something better by making mistakes. So is there one that you really regret making somewhere down in the past?
Probably the most important personal mistake, I suppose, that I've learned from was that I had a son who had a serious substance abuse problem, and I believe I learned to take that more seriously than I did at the time.
How did that change how you...
Well, it made me, for one thing, a more compassionate person. And it made me realize that some of the problems that I might used to have adopted the attitude that it was the affected person's own fault, made me realize more empathetically that sometimes bad things that befall us are not our fault. And that since we're all in this together, we do need to make an effort to understand, and we can never abandon our essential humanity.
Where have you made a big mistake? Something where you were sorry it happened, but it really taught you something.
I would say that and I think about this a lot, I learned when I was on the city council, I was known for being very thorough and working really hard and making sure that I looked at all the information and made the best decision I could on behalf of the people that I was elected to represent. Frequently, that meant saying no to some things. And I learned that you should always couple a no with a better idea. In other words, just present something, because people generally want solutions. They want to feel that their city is growing. They want to look at positives. And in Fort Worth, we have so many. And, I tended to always say, but realistically, here's what we can't do. And I think that I've learned that you've got to really encourage people and look at what we can do. And that's something that I think is very important.
People say you learn the most from your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
What was the most horrendous mistake you might be willing to talk about where you think you learned the most?
I can tell you exactly. I'm a big preservationist, and I live in a 112-year-old old home, and my law office is 90 years old. And when I went on the council, I was very much in favor of preserving and making sure that we looked at all of the historical buildings and everything. I was afraid. I believe that Fort Worth has a great personality, and it's based upon our Western heritage and the history of all of these great people that came here. But I participated in and helped pass an ordinance that when it came time for me to remodel my old home, there was an old garage behind that. It was going to fall down. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was built for a Model T. And when the architects went down to get the permit to begin the restoration, they said, we can't tear the garage down. I said, what do you mean you can't tear the garage? Well, we got to go through these procedures that the city has. And I was amazed. I kept saying, I don't understand. That garage you can't use it and it's fixing to fall down. What procedures? Well, to make a long story short, I went down kind of huffy to the department that handled that kind of stuff and walked into the head of the department and demanded to know why we had an ordinance like that created that kind of a burden for a citizen. And I said, who created this? Who did this? With a big smile on his face, he looked at me and said, you did. The lesson I learned is that there's so much that happens and there's so much you're given, and sometimes you have to rely on other people, how they interpret something. But when you get into ordinances that start limiting people's rights to do things, I think you need to really be careful about that.
You might, and others might admit that they learn from mistakes. Is there one regrettable mistake in your Fort Worth career here that you learned from, but you sure hope you never do again?
There's lots. Everybody's made lots of mistakes. Yeah. Probably, if I had it to do again, I would have taken my business skills and my community commitment and gotten involved in the political arena a little sooner. And this is not, Bill, for me about the politics. This is about the public service. I never went into the tax office for politics, but for service to increase the efficiencies there. I think it's the same thing for the mayor's office. You want to leave a better city than you found. I have children here, grandchildren here. I want to leave Fort Worth stronger than it is now, a city that they'll love.
People say I really learn the most when I've made my mistakes. That's how you can figure things out. What mistake have you made that you're willing to talk about? Where you really learned something?
You talking political or personal?
I'll leave it up to you.
I think the biggest general mistake I can think of that I tend to make is I become quite passionate about something before I might know all the facets of it. And I think that that's a concern for any potential leader, that they have to understand that you have to look before you jump. So that would be something that ultimately, and I think on this campaign I have learned quite a bit from that. Sometimes making a statement that I had to retract or rethink in the next forum simply because I phrased it wrong or worded it wrong, or perhaps my enthusiasm came out a little too much.
For example?
Well, the Barnett Shale. When I heard the presentation that I was given, and it's a very inspiring presentation, and they're right, it is going to make us a leader in this area. But when I came out and I said, yes, I support it and we have to get on it, I should have qualified that with the statement, but make certain that our health and safety are in line. I think that goes without saying, but of course when you don't say it, people assume you're just blindly following, and that was a mistake I made.